Now, to get it out of the way, I did see some comments on the internet about Vanessa in this episode. I get it. I totally understand. Respectfully. But anyways, I thought episode 5 was pretty funny. It was great, but more importantly, it's a continuation of Vanessa coming into her own as an individual, separate from the rest of the characters. I mean, it was much needed considering what we've seen in season 3's finale, which was crazy, that being an understatement. I think even in my review for that episode, I was saying that we're probably not going to get a resolve to her character arc till season 4, and although in this episode it doesn't seem like it was entirely wrapped up, this, if anything, is a stepping stone into that direction. And I say that because for a substantial chunk of this episode, Vanessa was being a little indifferent towards Lottie acting, and when it came to that, I was a bit torn because on one end it's like the intention of the trip kind of got complicated. Lottie was meant to just watch her mom do the acting and do these great things, but on the other end it's like Vanessa was gradually watching her daughter being exploited, and that's not a pretty picture for a parent, I can only imagine. And although Lottie may have been enjoying herself, she's a child, she doesn't understand the bigger picture of what is happening. And the craziest part is there were some characters like saying don't take away the joy from this child, but it's like I was a bit skeptical. I was like, no, that you're just that's just a ploy to keep Lottie there. And even if it does put into the air, like, is this worth the long-term effects? And as credit to the end of the episode, obviously not, hence the conversation about representation and having Lottie decide that on her own when she's old enough to. So I think in the end Vanessa definitely did make the right call in not having Lottie continue down that path. Definitely a Lmao moment. Now, with some other highlights of this episode, I thought everything involving Mr. Chocolate was downright funny. Like, I was under the impression that we weren't going to see the guy and he was just going to be posing as this omnipotent being via intercom, but when it came to the reveal, I thought everything from the grits to realizing it was Donald in disguise was very funny. Like, it took me like 2 to 3 minutes to realize it was him. Like, the guy has some pretty distinct eye movements, especially when he's surprised, that I think if you've been a fan of him long enough, he'd be pretty easy to spot in a crowd. But I take it that in the dressing room they kind of went with the Tyler Perry approach, where even in the suit of Medea you can kind of tell it's still him under there. So I think if the hair and makeup crew wanted to hide Donald further in the suit, they could have definitely done that. Now, I'm throwing this one in the dark, to be honest, and it could just be me. I almost jumped to the conclusion that Mr. Chocolate was just Ern in disguise. We saw the lengths of what Ern will go through to get back at someone, and it's only because of dialogue choices in this episode that I figured that.
You break into my queue, shoot my guard, and then tell me how to raise my child!
I feel like if you're not really paying attention, like if you only watch it once, it's very easy to mistake it for him talking about Lottie. But given the contextual background of this episode, it kind of contradicts that. Like, it's established pretty early in the episode that Mr. Chocolate has made a name and legacy for himself, and given the timeline of Atlanta and how long the characters have had money, from a practicality standpoint, it just wouldn't make sense for Ern to be involved in something like this. So I call complete doubt on it. But that concludes my overall thoughts on this episode. Again, I thought it was great, not only for it being funny, but because we got to see more of Vanessa and seeing her grow as a character, which is always a treat, especially after season 3. Now, if I missed anything or there were some references that totally went over my head, please feel free to share them below. There's nothing more I appreciate than the subtle details in media. Please take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys in the next one.